Ralston, morning.
Yeah, man. Blessed love, man.
Yeah, man, we have to give thanks to the Most High God first and
Every
foremost
time, man.
before
Yeah,
anything
man.
else, my brother. Now, Ralston, this morning we want to look at the health of Jamaica's economy because we hear that we are lying and we are spreading misinformation and all of that. So we just want to calmly and gently welcome the world to listen this morning while we look at the health and wealth of Jamaica's economy. What is the health of Jamaica's economy, Ralston, when you do the ultrasound, you do the CT scan, you do the MRI scan? What is the health of this economy?
The Jamaican economy is in a recession, right? The poverty rate is increasing. We saw an acceleration in inflation in March of this year compared with March of last year and February. We also see now for the first time in a long time the value of the consumer and food import bill for the first 11 months of last year was way ahead of what we got from our total exports of goods and services.
Mm-hmm.
We see the remittance flows are shrinking because of what is happening in the U.S. And we see that the tourism earnings are also flattening because of what is happening.
So I went online to chat with the missionaries, and they answered all these questions.
Flattening because of what is happening in the U.S. And the people are more desperate than ever. We saw the dollar since Donald Trump announced his tariff, and since we haven't gotten any poor response from the government, apart from the foolishness that you had all been saying a while ago, the dollar has been depreciating every single day since that. Despite every central bank intervention, last week it was $90 million US dollars, 27 billion Jamaican dollars mopped up. Yesterday, Friday, we saw another 8 billion being mopped up, and we see 3 instruments coming out next week to continue the same process because the dollar is under significant pressure because of the poor response of the government in relation to what is happening internationally. We also have the worst finance minister that has ever gone down to the Ministry of Finance in the history of Jamaica.
So you are classifying Favour Williams as the worst finance minister we
ever
have ever
in
seen.
the history of Jamaica.
And you just gave us all the symptoms to say that the Jamaican economy is in a recession a while ago. What are the symptoms or what are the checks that you have used to now recognize Favour Williams as the worst finance minister?
Well, since she has gone down to the ministry, she has not made any statement that is confidence-inspiring. First, she told us about the nonsense about throw boxes. Then, despite the she said the major objective of macroeconomic policy is to bring the debt to GDP ratio down to 60% so that we can borrow at more affordable rates in an environment where international interest rates are going up because of what is happening with the dollar. The dollar is inflating the global economy, and she's still saying that we are going to continue on the same track that Nigel Clark left so that we can get more money to borrow, rather than saying that we're going to shift emphasis now and focus on production and export so that we do not have to borrow so much in a world that it is going to become more difficult to borrow.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a town hall meeting constituency that we should have attended that you take and she failed to attend. There's also the argument about she wanted the company to negotiate with to conduct the debate with Julian Robinson. And there's also the experience on her side where the speaker have to be handling her like a child in parliament every time she makes a presentation. That is pathetic.
No. So if you look at her as the worst finance minister, how do you classify the Prime Minister's statement talking about the economy is stable and we are lying?
Well, the Prime Minister is the one who is lying. The Prime Minister was on the road the other day saying that we're not borrowing when they were borrowing every day. Right now, if you look at the Bank of Jamaica's website, and his friends them and his supporters can look at the Bank of Jamaica's website and see the 3 instruments that will be open next week.
So next week, the government will be borrowing from Jamaicans.
More.
From Jamaicans, locally.
Yep. And every time, again, this is another thing, every time they float an instrument. Last week they wanted 20 billion from a CD.
Yeah.
They got 66 billion.
So investors, that should say to us that investors are not really investing. They are now preferably buying government papers.
And they do that when they have no confidence. They are running for safety.
Done.
If they had confidence, they'll be investing those things in goods and services. They are now running for safety.
So Dan Anderson came out the other day with a poll that says business confidence is down. Speak to us about that.
Well, I told you from in December that what they were doing, it was a political decision on the part of Metro Shiaga and his friends to tell the people that there was confidence, because if there was confidence, they wouldn't be investing, giving the Bank of Jamaica so much money to lock up in the vault.
Right.
At that time, we were saying that the economy was in a recession, and how could investors be confident in a recession? No, because they never wanted to call it. They took a political decision, because even Don himself said he couldn't understand what they were saying to him, but as opposed to he has the obligation to publish the results. So we knew
what they said
that
to him.
That was.
So
we knew that was just fake, and so the evidence now, business confidence is down by a whopping 11.3 percentage points during the quarter ended just recently. So how could you drop from that high levels of confidence in December, and then by March you're down in a tunnel?
Is it your opinion, Ralston, that members of the administration would have called business people and asked them to say that you are confident in the economy, so that result came out last year? Or
that's part of it, and the members of the leading business community, they are not operating independently. They have aligned themselves with the current administration, just like the people in the US.
But we heard one businessman came out the other day, I can't remember his name right now, and said that this is the worst he has ever seen the economy.
That's a very objective person. That's somebody I know a long time. Omar Azan.
Right.
He was the former president of the Jamaican Manufacturers Association, completely different from the one that we have now.
But nobody challenged him. You realize, Ralston, that nobody opened their mouth.
Because Omar Azan is a stalwart in this business. Yeah.
Omar Azan came out and said that as a businessman, this is the worst he has ever seen it. And nobody, not one person.
Millions of people are attacked by bacteria, causing inflammation and gum problems. Unlike others, Colgate Total Superior Formula fights bacteria and creates
has ever seen it. And nobody, not one person, he was able to say, you're talking rubbish.
That is a fact. They can't challenge what I'm saying either. That is why they come and say, oh boy, they're just telling lies, but they can't come up with any numbers to challenge what we're saying, because the numbers are there to show.
And that's what I've been saying to people. We come on this program. Ralston is on his program weekdays, Mondays to Fridays on Power 106, Real Business. I am here 3 times a week, and we are talking about the numbers. And all I see on social media, them say we bad mind, we are idiot.
Yep.
Nobody has been able to come with some figures and said, here is our side. They cannot challenge our argument, Ralston.
Precisely. I'm going to give you an anecdote. You know, somebody called me and said, they was talking to Marlon Morgan.
Yeah.
The time I was call up my name. And them said to him, so tell me which number he ever says wrong. He said, no, numbers are not wrong, but he's a PNP acting.
No, what he's saying is that we are against Jamaica because we talk these things. We are put the country in a bad light. It's the same thing they are saying about Jesse James Clark. E. coli is in the water. Other contaminants is in the water, and Jesse James Clark come out and mention it. And they are saying that we're going against Jamaica. Well, we must close our eyes and watch it crash?
Yeah, man, garbage.
No, Ralston, based on all that you have said earlier about the economy, where is the economy going? Tell us the trajectory that you are seeing and what you are predicting based on the data, because you don't talk from the seat of your pants. We don't talk from our emotions. We talk from the data. Where is this going?
As long as it's their same friends in the business community, the institutions and the people who manage pension money and all of those. Right now, they have no confidence, and that is why they are giving the Bank of Jamaica all their money to lock up in the vault and earn 6.5% per annum, because they know as long as we continue on the current trajectory, given what is happening internationally, the economy is going to continue to shrink, continue to go down, unless there's a change in policy. And right now, they haven't heard anything sensible from Trayvon Williams, and they haven't heard anything sensible from Albany, and they haven't heard anything sensible from the Prime Minister apart from cussing everybody who are trying to analyze the economy in a sensible way. So based on what is happening, you don't have to go after what I say. Just look at what the investing community is doing. Giving the Bank of Jamaica their money to lock up in the vault at 6.5% per annum because they see as long as these policies continue, they are not optimistic about the direction of the economy. We need to see a change in policy.
Listeners and viewers, what is happening is that the Jamaican government is borrowing money on the local market. The Bank of Jamaica is saying that there's too much money out there not being invested, so we want it. Every time the government say that they want money to borrow, if they say they want 20 million, 20 billion, 60 billion come.
Yeah,
and why that is happening is that people are not going to invest because they are afraid of losing their money. Isn't that so?
Simply, correct.
Simply speaking. Now, Ralston, there's a saying that says, anytime the U.S. sneeze, Jamaica will catch the cold.
Yeah,
is it that, should we believe that the U.S. really is having a cold right now?
U.S. is having more than a cold. U.S. is having a terrible state of Trumpian influenza.
So if the U.S. is having a cold right now, that means Jamaica catch COVID and pneumonia with it?
Yeah, you're right. And that is why the investors are running for cover, because the Jamaican governor, the doctor, Dr. Andrew Holness, has not told the people how he's going to deal with the U.S. influenza.
For about 13 years, Anthony Hilton been talking about a logistics hub, Jamaica becoming the 4th logistics hub in the world. Mm-hmm. This government has sat down on it. We saw the break ground down at Caymanas earlier this week. What are your views on that?
Yeah, well, they say we see the break ground with Caymanas and Raintree, because what they're not realizing is that late in the day, that these are some things that are needed if the economy is going to move. Yeah, given what is happening internationally, but they are late in the game, better late than never. But they are finally seeing the vision of what Tony was seeing at that time.
But do you believe...
That is why when Tony addressed the thing, he told the Prime Minister that you certainly cannot claim paternity for this one.
Well, the truth is, and for the first time, I heard the Prime Minister saying Anthony Hilton is the father. Yep. He said that.
Well, he's saying that because Tony mentioned that in his opening statement. Because Tony was there at the opening too.
Oh, Tony spoke?
Yeah.
No, I never
and that
saw...
was the first thing in Tony's statement. He told the Prime Minister directly that you cannot claim paternity for this one. The Prime Minister wouldn't be honest enough to say that if Tony never said that before.
I did not watch the thing live. I went back and I watched the Prime Minister's
I had
speech.
all the presentations, both the Prime Minister's presentation and Tony's presentation.
Well, I have to go look on Tony's presentation. I never know that Tony spoke, but I heard
right
him
up front.
I heard him giving Tony the recognition.
Because he couldn't do anything else.
Are you confident that they really understand it, Ralston, or they are just doing it because something needs to be done?
Yeah, man, they don't understand it. So they are just trying a thing after this long delay, because this is 13 years after.
13 years.
Those things have been up and running, and the economy would have been in a better position now.
What other plans are you seeing from the government to grow the economy, if any?
Well, we don't see anything else. We don't hear about anything in agriculture. We don't hear anything about sensible in energy. We don't hear anything sensible about training up the labor force. We don't hear anything sensible about diversifying the country's export partners. What they are doing is trying and see if the U.S. will give them a blight. And they are forgetting that Dr. Kissinger said U.S. do not have friends, the U.S. only have interest.
No,
if you listen to Albany, you'll see that they are trying and hoping that the Donald will give them a blight.
I have a major concern.
Because the thing about CBI, the executive orders by Donald effectively kill all of those things. So you're telling Jamaican people foolishness. Every arrangement that we had before or any other part of the world, those things have been superseded by the Donald's trade war. So they're not going back to that. So that is nonsense you're telling the people.
No, I have a major concern, Ralston. Because like an aeroplane, you're going to fly, or like a ship going to sea, your radar needs to be working so that you can map your route and you can see what is coming at you and you can see where to go. You can see if there's a storm so you can change course. The government had allocated $4 billion for a population census. To date, that census has not been completed. How then can the government plan effectively for this nation?
Yeah, well, it's difficult to plan, and that is one thing. And the census is done every 10 years. So it's now 20 years now since we haven't done a census. And that is one thing I mentioned when people were talking. I said, how is the Niger great and couldn't complete a census? This is the first time in the history of Jamaica we have been able to complete a population census. Right now, Statin doesn't have an head because Ms. Coy retired, and I know they haven't named anybody to run Statin. So it tells you the low level of expectation they have of the agency. Yeah.
Is it a lack of...
That's a big blunder.
Is there a lack of talent in the government, Ralston? Because a country has many moving parts, and you can't just focus on one or two things. Everything has to be monitored. Do you believe that this government is monitoring all the things that needs to be monitored in Jamaica for the country?
The Prime Minister has too much responsibility, and he doesn't have the capacity to carry out those responsibilities. And as I said before, Favour Williams is the worst finance minister. They are the top faces of the government. Kamina Johnson doesn't understand international trade. Yes, so you see the problem we have. The top four, they don't understand what is happening globally.
Let's go back and look back at some of the figures, because you mentioned the recession earlier. The first quarter of last year, we grew by 1%. Second quarter, 0.8%. Third quarter, we went down by 3.8%. Fourth quarter, we went down by 0.8%. How is the first quarter of 2025 looking, Ralston? What are you hearing?
Based on what is happening and based on what they say, they'll expect between 0 and 0.8%. Based on what is happening globally and the poor response and what is happening locally in terms of investing, I see another decline again. So, because even their best estimate was, forget, 0.8%.
So if the government...
And that was before all hell broke loose with Donald Trump and all of these things.
Right. So if the government, before the tariffs and the trade war, because we're going to look at the trade war between US and China, because that have implications for Jamaica. But if the government before all of that barely looked at it and said we might grow by 0.8%.
0.8.
That for me is basically no growth. If the government was looking at that, what then can we as a people expect?
Another decline in this quarter.
So we are guesstimating that this is the beginning of a hell-shaped recession?
Well, I'd say, yeah. Unless there's a policy shift.
What shift could make a difference, Ralston? What could make a difference?
Well, they are running out of time now because the election is just around the corner. But whoever wins the election, the policy shift that we're seeing is to reduce the focus on just talking about debt reduction, the one-sided focus. And growth has to be the focus of policy. And in dealing with that growth, you have to deal with energy, because if you have a lower energy cost, the tariff will not affect you. That's one. You have to deal with the whole situation in terms of agriculture, because it's not tolerable that your food import bill, you can't buy your food with your total income. That's madness. Yeah. Then you'll have to look to the creative industries. Bartlett sees that, so he gave us some bogus figures on the creative industry in terms of Carnival recently.
We have to talk about that too, but hold on.
Yeah, because they are seeing the importance of that industry. So those are the things, and the logistics. So those are the things that the next administration have to focus on. Growth has to be the major focus of macroeconomic policy now, not debt reduction. When you grow, your debt not coming like nothing. You have enough money to pay your debt and you don't have to borrow. Yeah?
So this bragging about bringing down the debt to 68%, debt to GDP to 68%, which other country in the world, Ralston, have that kind of debt to GDP?
Only Germany, and that is why Germany now have to turn back and fix the problem and come up with a $500 billion US stimulus plan. That thing came out of Europe, and Germany is the only country in Europe that hit that. And as a result of that, it pushed them into a recession. And the new chancellor of Germany the other day have to come up and say, yo, what them money they had before, I have to do that. Right, I know me I stimulate the economy. So then change the constitution in Germany to have a $500 billion stimulus plan.
How long now Germany has been in a recession?
3 years. And Germany is the third largest economy in the world. So when you ain't anywhere and them money I tell you about foolishness about economy strong, so it can't in a recession. Germany is the third largest economy in the world, and they were in a recession for 3 years. So and can't tell the Jamaican people them foolishness that them they are the lie them.
So this administration did not see that Germany charting the same course that we are on end up in a recession, and therefore...
That's why I'm narrate them, because they don't understand the international economy. They're very tunnel vision. That's the point I'm making here. That is one of the reasons I'm telling you, Fabian Williams are the worst finance minister, because she don't have a clue about what takes place in the world. And Jamaica is a small economy operating in a larger international economy that is dominated by the USA, China, European Union. So what I'm seeing, country of the European Union.
What I'm seeing from this is that we don't learn from other people's experience.
No, because they have no international experience. That's the point I'm making here. It's the same thing them doing in 2008. Tell the people for the Great Recession would have helped Jamaica. I tell you how we get now this debt to GDP now, what them talk about. Then tell the people in 2008 for the Great Recession would have helped Jamaica. And then when the whole thing broke, then they are dilly-dally. When we tell them to go to the IMF and get some money, then dilly-dally until it come down to the last point. And then fire Laxibody during 2009. And then go to IMF now and take a foolish agreement because they had no experience. Ardisha had no experience about IMF. Dwight Nelson had no experience about IMF. My good friend Dan Webber never had no experience about IMF. And Laxibody, the man who had experience about IMF. Then fire Ardisha, two bull can roll in a one pen. Then go and take a standby arrangement for 27 months rather than take an extended funds facility. And then get 2.4 billion from the man, them IMF, World Bank, IDB, and them only pass one test.
So it's the same level of arrogance we're talking about now.
Yeah, abandon the program. And so the debt to GDP reach up to 146%, 147. And I saw Peter Phillips and Portia Simpson and Maxine Waters and them people have to get IMF to start talk back to Jamaica again. And so the debt come down. Venezuela sell away $3 billion for $1.5 billion. And so the debt start fall. And then 2017, when them come in, them change the definition of the debt, take out the Bank of Jamaica debt. And so the debt to GDP start fall. So they might take credit for a problem that them created. That is what they lie the Prime Minister telling.
So,
and he was a senior member of that team, was the leader of government business
in the House
at that time.
Yes. Yeah. No. Are we seeing the same level of arrogance going forward this time again, right?
Arrogance and stupidity. And not arrogance alone, stupidity. Because you can be a small economy with the US, a major trading partner. And the US fight a trade war with the European, because it's not just China alone. China the main target, but some so stupid that it include everybody, including the European Union. And then you have to pretend like it now have no impact on you. When you import, Jamaica import 90% of the raw materials that they use. All of that are coming with tariff. That's why all of the prices them are going up this week.
So, what you said a while ago?
Jamaica import 90% of all the raw materials that we use for production.
No, not
all
that.
The raw materials.
You said something about prices.
Yeah, every price are go up.
What do you mean every
because
price?
Because the raw materials that we used to produce, all of them are coming with tariff. All of them mutton and sheep that we get from New Zealand and Australia, all of them are coming with tariff. Once them pass through the US, them are coming with tariff. So all of them pass through the US.
Hold on, Ralston. So what you tell me, say? Food price are going to go up?
Of course.
People,
of course.
Ralston, Iman just say all of the prices them are going to go up next week.
You see an acceleration in inflation. It started already. Inflation is now 5% from 4.4%. And them things never kick in yet.
You're frightened me now. You're frightened.
I'm not telling the truth about the economy. Remember,
well, me want the truth,
Jamaican people don't know.
But it not necessarily means that the truth now going to frighten me, Ralston, but me want the truth. Tell me.
Yep. The largest import bill we have is for raw materials and spare parts. That's our largest import bill.
Raw materials. Yep. So the things where you need to make flour, you need to make flour. The things where you need to make animal feed. The things where your parts for your vehicle, all of that.
All right. All of that. And most of them come from China or the Far East, and all them countries are under tariff. We know that 28% and 145%. So all them things, the price of them things have to increase.
So instead of the Prime Minister telling us to brace, because I saw a blogger, Ralston, and he brought up the Prime Minister saying that he was watching a TikTok live and we are lying. The blogger brought up your picture and my picture. And said, stop talking about blogger, say Colin Bella Ralston, man. And the man them not telling a lie. The blogger went to BOJ and draw the figures for the Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ralston, this trade war with China and the United States, you just mentioned that 90% of our raw materials and spare parts are imported. They come through the United States. Anything coming from China that touches the US is going to have serious tariff. What?
145%. I'm going to give a simple example. And the woman them can identify with this more. Sheen.
Yes.
And Temu, when them buy them something fun.
Yeah.
Them man, so them prices are go up from the 25th of this month, which is Friday, because of the tariffs that them have to pay for come through the US.
So all our we used to buy upon Sheen for little and nothing will be going up.
Will be going up Friday. Man, them don't tell you the date already. Friday. Yep.
No, Ralston.
Because what Trump do, apart from the 145% tariff, anything we used to come in at the US with value less than $800 used to come in duty free.
Yeah.
Cancel that for everything will come from China.
Wow.
Yep.
Ralston, the Prime Minister said the dollar has been the most stable since 2016. Is that so?
Well, it depends on what we call stability. We believe that stability comes from your dollar is stable because you're importing and exporting, and your exports are more than your imports, so you have a balance. What we're seeing is that the Bank of Jamaica has to be intervening in the market almost every day in order to keep the dollar.
And last year, the Bank of Jamaica spent $1.1 billion.
Billion US dollars in
defending the
Jamaican,
dollar.
US.
How much we gone from this year, Ralston? Because last week, as you mentioned, was 90 million. How much we gone from the week? We've
gone about 200 million since the start of this year. But what the people might watch is not only the stabilization, not only have to do with the amount of US dollar we put in the market, it also have to do with the Jamaican dollar we take out of circulation, which should be financing investments, and we pay 6.5% on that money, and it is locked up in the vault.
So we're living on a false premise.
Yep, so we're losing. So don't just look at the US dollar intervention. Them also back it up with taking Jamaican money out of circulation.
To stop people from buying the dollar.
Correct.
So they are saying to you, instead of buying US dollars to shore up your money, don't buy the US dollars. Carry the money, come, we give you 6.5% interest.
Precisely. And we have to pay the interest on that out of taxes, although the economy is not growing.
Tell me, Ralston, the last time we spoke, you gave me what? 11 months of our food importation bill. Have we gotten the last month? Are we at 12 months now?
No, we don't get that yet. We're supposed to get that the end of this month.
So
it'll end up at about $2 billion.
$2 billion for food. What
US
about
dollars.
oil?
Yeah. Yep.
What about oil?
Oil is going to end up at about 2.1 billion.
So that's oil and food is 4.1 billion.
Yeah. And the raw material and capital goods, raw material and intermediate goods is another 2.2 billion. So
we're talking about 6.3.
Mm-hmm.
$6.3 billion worth of import. And our total export?
No, but hold on. That's just them big items. We also have imports. For the first 11 months, the import bill was $6.7 billion. Because we also import cars and capital goods.
Right.
Yeah.
And our export is?
1.72 billion for the first 11 months. So we ran a trade deficit of 5 billion.
What we're getting from tourism now?
Tourism 1.76 billion. And remittances last year was 3.12. So between the two of them couldn't reduce the trade deficit. Those two came to 4.8 billion. And the trade for 1 year, listen to me. Those things were 4.8 billion for 1 year, and the trade deficit was 5 billion for 11 months. So you see how far behind we are.
No.
Listen again, 1 year's income from tourism and remittances couldn't cover 11 months of the trade deficit. Prime Minister not telling them something.
So we're in serious trouble, Jamaicans.
Of course.
We are in trouble.
So why did the dollar slide and the mafia buys after under pressure every day and tries to stabilize it?
But
those are the figures.
But if we continue that way, Ralston, the net international reserve, which now stands at what, $5 billion? $5
billion.
That is going to go down because isn't that what we are taking the money from to shore up the dollar?
We cannot continue like that, and we cannot continue to take the reserves and Jamaican dollar out of circulation, then to kill the poor people. And remember, the money, the Jamaican dollar we are taking out of circulation is money that should be invested so poor people can get work and the place can fix up and then thing there.
And then we give away.
Continue.
And then the plan is to give away $12.4 billion, right?
Yep.
Isn't that the rent money we're partying with?
Of course, that is rubbish. And then look at it.
So
the man them in the coffee belt and say, yo, give away. First them said 200 million. Now them say since what happened with Trump, coffee, so them tax all coffee exports and them all them garbage.
That's what I understand. Spoke to Norman Grant last week or the week before.
Right. All right. So Grant I say, yo, from about 5 years when I asked the man them, give me $200 million per year and we can move coffee exports from 25 million to 100 million.
Yes, he told me
no,
that.
Because of what take place, him say, all right, give it 350 million. Right? No, look at
350 million, hold on, 350 million
Jamaican dollar.
And the government is itching to invest that to get 100 million US?
US dollars. So you can't tell me the money I said. And they just give it 12.4 billion so man's gonna buy things where
right. So that Ralston, what is the benefit from that 12.4 billion? And people, if we said 12.4 billion, let me just tell you what it is. First, they gave away $11.4 billion to everybody earning under $3 million. And now there's a commitment to give away another $1 billion for people who they don't know, who not in the tax net. Anybody who never get none, just register and you will get $20,000. What is the benefit of that?
The money they buy imported track shoes, imported wigs.
Things are for Sheen.
This have no value to the Jamaican economy.
So you are saying that when Favour Williams came to the parliament and said the PNP will party with the rent money, that was exactly what they were doing, partying with the rent money?
Of course. That's why I'm telling about the stupidity. Yeah. So all the money there buy imported goods and put the dollar under pressure and put the country under more pressure. When you could have used it to earn more foreign exchange, fix up the farm road, them invest in the farmers, them, and you reduce the food import bill, you get more money from coffee. Yeah.
I want to go back to the coffee, Ralston, because right after you, I'm going to be talking to Councillor Hubert Williams, who said that farmers should be getting at least $22,000 a box for coffee. We saw Favour Williams rubbish that, and Cliff Hughes rubbished it. What would that benefit the farmers if the farmers could get anywhere even close to that $22,000 a box?
Well, it means that we'd have more coffee production. Coffee production job. Right now we're down to 240,000 boxes. The man and say if it did them, all of them things, they would have gone up to 490 to 500,000 boxes.
Because there was a time when we were at 500,000 boxes.
Correct. We're down to 240,000 boxes now. Them don't know about the industry, so them can't speak. Favour Williams and Cliff Hughes can't speak logically to anything that take place. Because them don't know about the industry. Them not use no figures. And that's gut feeling and PR them a deal. We deal with real hard numbers.
Ralston, I know you have to go. That's why we have you on so early this morning, because most of the people
man, we can get another 15 months.
Yeah, man. All right. So talk to me now. The whole aspect, Ralston, of what Jamaica needs to do that we weren't doing. We talk about the debt to GDP at 68%, and the government is still insisting on bring it down to 60%. Tell me, the United States that we try to eliminate, what is their debt to GDP?
123%. The debt ceiling is $35 trillion, and Donald Trump wants to raise the debt ceiling so that they can borrow more.
So they can, so they are not even worried about even going up to 140%.
They're worried about recession.
China's debt to GDP, what is that?
200%.
200%.
Chinese economy grew by 5.4% during the first quarter, beating all the estimates.
Let's look at some of the countries who are close to us. What is Barbados' debt to GDP?
Barbados is up at 97. Barbados grew by 4.4% last year.
Grenada
is almost 100% too. Them grow faster than us despite Hurricane Beryl.
So what I'm doing this to show you, my people, is that this argument about bringing down the debt so we can borrow more is really nonsensical.
That's why I'm telling you that she's the worst finance minister, because if you come in and say the economy in a recession, so the world, IMF and everybody are project a slowdown or a recession, and then you say you are continuing with your policy that pushing a recession so that you can get an investment grade so that you can borrow more money, rather than say, boy, you have to accelerate growth so you can borrow less and take care of your people. This is a monumental exercise in stupidity, as Larry Summers said.
So the government of Jamaica is not doing anything fast about production.
No.
And therefore, this is going to get worse.
Of course. Of course. Remember, as I say now, your exports can't buy your food, let alone to buy oil, let alone to buy intermediate goods or raw materials.
My fear, Ralston, and I've been saying this to you, my fear is the government refusal to accept that the economy is in a recession.
Correct.
That is my biggest fear, because if you fail to accept the problem, then you won't seek any solution.
Precisely.
And therefore, what the Prime Minister does, goes on a stage, lambasts people like us who point out the reality to the people and call us false news whore and liars. No.
Yeah, but he can't say anything, because my numbers have never proven to be wrong, because we are using official data and international data. So he can't chat anything what he wants to chat, but he can't challenge the numbers. And every day I tell him, say, media a whole week of real business to come and correct anything what I say and tell us your position. I never accept the invitation yet.
But how come, Ralston, we have a finance minister that refused to come out and take questions from...
Because she cannot manage the questions. That's the point I'm making to you. That's why I'm telling you that she's the worst finance minister we have ever had. She has very little knowledge about the economy, about international economics.
And I sent out a hat this morning that anybody who have a question, come with your question this morning. We want to hear.
Right now, we take all of them. Any one of them. Prime